MP Jim Allister, good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, how will you be voting?
I will vote against this legislation because I'm pro-life in all my approaches to these things, and this is a quite shocking interference by the state. You know, the state and many charities spend a lot of time and money, quite rightly, in trying to reduce suicide, and yet here we have the state about to sanction and indeed promote assisted suicide. I just can't square that circle, and I think that it's not what parliamentarians should be doing. It's facilitating the ending of life.
But those behind this bill, Mr. Allister, will deny that they're promoting suicide, and it is a very difficult conversation, and I understand your point, but there are valid points on both sides, surely. Isn't this about dignity towards the end of life? If someone is suffering, then it's so difficult on not only that person, but also those that love them.
This is a difficult subject, and people do have very painful deaths. But they could also have a painful death of this, because there have been some episodes of that. But let's be very clear. What the state should be doing is improving palliative care for people in that condition. But what this legislation will do, it will diminish the focus on palliative care. It will mean that there's another way out, and therefore the state doesn't need to put the money that it should be putting into palliative care. This is not a level playing field. Palliative care has been neglected by and large, and that's where the focus and that's where the Parliament's attention should be. But, you know, the other thing about this is the facile safeguards which are said to exist. Much is made of the fact that two doctors have to sign off on this. Two doctors who might never have previously known the person who's about to be assisted in dying. But two doctors, we know in our other legislation, is no protection. I'd invite you to consider what Section 1 of the Abortion Act says. It says that you couldn't have an abortion without sign-off by two doctors. And yet, since that came in, there's been almost 10 million...
Let's stick to the facts here. This is not about abortion. This is about assisted dying and the bill that is going through on Friday. I mean, there are stringent measures in place, Mr. Allister.
Sorry, do not show your bias. This is about whether or not there's a proper protection in having two doctors. I'm pointing out that the other legislation that relies on two doctors is the Abortion Act. And despite that, we've had up to 10 million abortions. So having two doctors is no protection. And that is the same type of provision that is here.
Putting both sides is not showing bias. Can we just talk about the measures that are in place and your concerns around them? And as I told you earlier, I see valid points on both sides of this debate, and I think respect to all opinions is so important. So the measures in place, the person needs to have the mental... I do respect your opinion. I absolutely do. The person needs to have the mental capacity to make the choice, be expected to die within 6 months, make two separate declarations, witnessed and signed about their wish to die, satisfy two independent doctors that they are eligible with at least 7 days between each assessment. So there's so much more to this than just getting a sign-off by two doctors, surely.
I've dealt with the two doctors point, which is totally fatuous point. You talk about mental illness. You can be suffering from a mental disorder and qualify here. It can't be the thing that causes you to want to terminate your life, but you can be suffering from mental disorder at the same time. And yet, here we have a situation where the doctors they're not your GP. They're hired guns, so to speak. They're not those who have known your medical history.
That just comes across as extremely disrespectful to describe medical professionals as hired guns, and perhaps that's not
exactly what has happened
the way
in the
you mean
abortion
it.
legislation. Isn't that exactly what has happened in the abortion legislation?
This law is for England and Wales, as assisted dying is a devolved matter. So this law won't come into place, and we're not even at that stage yet. Is your concern that then that will filter down and become law here? Because it is a matter for Stormont and our own public representatives.
Well, it is, but this is about the principle bringing into the United Kingdom for the first time the principle that the state should facilitate and assist suicide. So that is a seminal moment and one which would feed through to all the devolved regions. So I think as a parliamentarian, and this being played before me as a parliamentarian, I will most certainly participate and exercise my vote in this matter in a manner which is pro-life, not the destruction of life.
As is your right. Thank you so much for putting your points to us this morning on the North West today. TUV MP Jim Annister.